I'm Chris Graddick, and I help thousands of people build wealth through buying and selling real estate. And today we're going to talk about when the best time of year is to sell your real estate. So today, when is the best time to sell real estate? It's actually a little bit of a loaded question, and honestly, it depends a lot on your scenario. So people will say, oh, well, springtime's when everybody buys and sells. That's kind of the age-old, adage that springtime is the time to sell real estate. That's when you're going to get the best price. But what we've seen over the last few years is that we are in a very low inventory market. And what that means is there's not a lot of real estate on the market. And so what happens with low inventory is it drives the price up because the buyers don't really change that much. We still have the same amount of buyers, but we have less real estate to sell. So that's what you might see. An example of this is like a football. You go to a stadium and you go to buy a bottle of water. What are you going to pay? $8 to $15 for a bottle of water. Where you go to the local supermarket, you're going to pay 25 cents for the bottle of water. It's because there's a lot of water there. There's no limit to the supply at the supermarket. But at the game, there's a limit to the supply, which drives the prices up. Well, what we're seeing is there's not a big change over the time because you will have more buyers in the market in the spring usually. You'll have a few more properties for sale in the spring. But the reality is, when you want to sell in the fall, the buyers that are there in the fall, they have to buy. Otherwise, most buyers would just say, oh, I'll just wait till springtime because it's easier, school, all the other reasons. But in the fall, anybody that's out looking for a property is ready to go, and they oftentimes have a need. So oftentimes they're going to pay more for the property, and you're not really going to get a massive discount in the fall anymore because it's not like you're competing with tons and tons and tons of properties. So with that said, when is the best time to buy? Again, or to sell? Again, it depends. Do you need to buy? Because if you're going to be buying a property, well, do you want to be competing in the spring with lots of other buyers? If you need to sell the property, do you have to sell right away? Just the idea of timing the market has not been a big win for almost anybody over the last few years. It's hard to time the market. The market just has steadily been increasing. We did have a bit of a dip. Interest rates went up by about 3 times what they were, and we saw a bit of a dip. But because of the fact that inventory was so low, we didn't see a massive crash. You saw a dip. And now the prices are going back up again because interest rates have come down just a little bit. But what happened is buyers have gotten used to the new interest rate. And let me give you an example of this. I heard Tony Robbins telling this story about a study that was done with monkeys, right? And so what they did was they gave a monkey one apple, and that monkey was super happy, so happy they had the apple. Well, then they gave another set of monkeys 2 apples. So the monkeys were so happy they had 2 apples, maybe just a little bit happier, but not much happier that they had 2 apples. Then they took one of the apples away from the monkeys to the 2 apples. And instead of being like, I've still got my apple, I'm so happy, what happened was the monkey lost their mind. They got so angry, so upset, so frustrated, even though they still had the 1 apple. And the monkey said, we had the 1 apple, we're happy. Well, what does that mean to the real estate market? What it means is the interest rates are still super low. The interest rates, like if you look at the history of interest rates, we are still super low. So many people talk about the first time, my parents talking about the first time they bought their house at 14 or 18% interest. So being in at 5 to 6% interest is still super low. So what had to happen was we had to get over losing that 1 out and saying, I want my 2% interest rate, I want my 3% interest rate, and getting frustrated about it and saying, you know what, 5% interest rate, 6% interest rate is still pretty darn good. And so now the buyers are back at it, and we're seeing the pricing start to go back up. And because there wasn't much inventory, we're not going to see a massive crash. Also, one of the other things too, people were talking about 2008. So in 2008, with the crash that happened in 2008, we saw that, and it was at a different market then. McDonald's workers were getting loans for $1 million properties that were just making minimum wage. And so what all of that can do, there was a massive foreclosure market, which brought a ton of inventory, which means a ton of properties to the market. And again, when there's a lot of inventory, that bottle of water is worth 25 cents. And when there's not much, it's worth maybe 15 bucks. Well, because there's no inventory right now, we're seeing that the market is going to be stable. It's going to be strong. There's not going to be much of a difference when you buy or sell. So the reality is you should do whatever the timing is that's best for your family. Timing, waiting, it's just, when the time is right for you, you should do it. You're not going to make much more money, if any at all, by trying to do it during a specific time period. And then even if you do make a little bit more money and then you have to buy, you're going to be competing with everybody else. And so if the market does go up in that time period, you're going to have to pay more for the next house as well. So it really doesn't make much sense. And the last thing I'll just say is this. It's a cheesy saying, but anybody that knows me knows I love to be cheesy. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So the reality is maybe you make an extra couple $1,000, maybe you make an extra $5,000, $10,000 on the market. But if you're buying the property as well, then all of a sudden over the next 5, 10 years, that money, honestly, it really doesn't matter. On my personal properties, now on my investment properties, it's different. But on my personal properties, I ended up paying market value, maybe just even a little bit more because it was right for my family at the right time. And you know what? A couple bucks over 30 years, it really, which is what my mortgage was, it really doesn't matter whether I'm getting a couple bucks more. One is that, like, $2 a month, it doesn't even cover a couple Starbucks that I save, right? Like, so at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter too much. You want to do what is right for you and your family. If this was helpful, please post any other comments in the chat. I love interacting with you personally. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about or interact with about real estate or wealth building in the future, please just post those in the chat as well, and we'll get to